imagine this for a second. You meet someone, say, on a dating app, you fall in love, get married, and then boom, almost overnight, your life is completely under the microscope because your partner just won a major primary election. And now, you might just be the next First Lady of New York City. Today, we're doing a deep dive into, well, just that kind of story. It's about Rama Duwaji. She's a multidisciplinary artist, and her life has taken this exact turn. Her husband, Zohran Mamdani, just pulled off what people are calling a stunning victory in the NYC mayoral primary. So to get a handle on this, we've gathered a bunch of recent articles, stuff from The Independent, BBC News, The New York Times, all from late June 2025. Our mission really is to unpack who Rama Duwaji is, her background, her art, and what this whole surprising journey might mean for public life in, well, one of the world's biggest cities.
Yeah, and what's really compelling here, for you listening, is that this isn't just, another political story. It's this fascinating intersection of art, personal identity, and frankly, the intense scrutiny that comes with public life. It gives us this unique chance to see how someone's individual expression kind of bumps up against the demands of a potential political role. It's a dynamic worth watching.
Okay, so let's start there. Let's unpack who Rama Duwaji is, at her core. The sources all mention she's a 27-year-old artist and animator. What more can you tell us about her creative world?
Absolutely. Well, her creative side is incredibly varied. She's an illustrator, yes, an animator. But she also does these really beautiful hand-built ceramics. And she even teaches workshops.
Oh, okay.
Background-wise, she was born in Texas, but she's originally from Damascus, Syria, now based here in New York, of course.
Yeah.
And education. She went to Virginia Commonwealth University for her undergrad.
Right.
And then came to New York for her master's in illustration from the School of Visual Arts.
That's quite a range of skills. What about the philosophy behind her art? Do the sources give us a sense of that? And what makes her style stand out?
They do. A key thing is her artistic statement. She says she uses drawn portraiture and movement to examine the nuances of sisterhood and communal experiences. Stylistically, a lot of her work is in black and white, and you often see scenes depicted from the Arab world.
Okay.
And what's really, I think, insightful is her client list. It's impressive. She's worked with Spotify, The New Yorker, The Washington Post, BBC, Apple, the Tate Modern, The New York Times, Vice.
Wow, so she was already pretty established then.
Exactly. This isn't just a resume point. It shows her work was already part of the public conversation, well before her husband's political profile rose. It really positions her as, well, not just an artist, but someone whose cultural voice was already recognized. She was even in documentaries tackling pretty complex global issues, like a BBC one on a Yemeni assassination from 1974.
So it's clear her art isn't just about, how things look. It carries a real message. Sounds like she's very much an artist with a strong public voice.
Oh, definitely. She actually references Nina Simone, saying, an artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times.
Right.
And she builds on that. She believes everyone has a responsibility to speak out against injustice, and art has such an ability to spread it. She sees art itself as inherently political, how it's made, funded, shared, all of it.
That's a very clear stance.
Yeah.
So how does this play out in her actual work? Do the sources give specific examples of how her art reflects these strong political and social views?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Her work is quite explicit about her views. For instance, some pieces critique what she calls American imperialism. She's also been very public in denouncing Israeli war crimes and what she terms the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. And her art has shown support for people like Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia grad, facing deportation over his pro-Palestinian advocacy. There was also an illustration she shared back in April 2023, just text saying, "Eyes on Sudan." And it included info on the civil war there, ways to donate for refugees, for victims of domestic violence.
That's a remarkably outspoken voice through art, deeply tied to current events, global issues. What does it mean for someone with such, defined public views to potentially step into a role like First Lady? That role is usually seen as more neutral, right?
That's exactly the big question, isn't it? That this whole situation makes us think about her art isn't separate from her feelings. It's deeply connected. She said in an interview, I think it was with Young back in April, something like, "Things are dark right now in NYC. I worry for my friends and family. Things feel completely out of my hands. With so many people being pushed out and silenced by fear, all I could do is use my voice to speak out about what's happening in the U.S. and Palestine and Syria as much as I can." So you see, it's not just echoing her husband's politics. It's her own voice, her own artistic expression as, an act of advocacy, almost defiance sometimes.
So given this really powerful artistic identity, how did she and Zohran Mamdani, the politician, actually connect? The sources mention a surprise origin.
Well, this is where it gets very, very 21st century. They met on Hinge.
The dating app. No kidding.
Yes. Mamdani himself talked about it on the Bulwark podcast. Apparently, he joked, so there is still hope in those dating apps,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people might find relatable.
Huh. That's definitely a modern start for a potential political power couple. So after Hinge, what did their journey to marriage look like?
Well, they got married officially in a civil ceremony. That was at the city clerk's office here in New York earlier this year, the sources say. But before that, they actually celebrated their engagement with a nikah. That's the traditional Islamic wedding ceremony. They held that in Dubai last year, which is where her family lives. There were even photos floating around from a florist there. You could see the Dubai skyline.
Ah.
And then for the civil ceremony, their friend Cara McCurdy, who's a photographer, shared some pictures. Mentioned taking the subway from Astoria to City Hall on a rainy day. Mamdani put some of those photos on his Instagram back in May.
It's always interesting how public figures manage their personal lives. Now, the sources mentioned some controversy during the primary campaign about her visibility, or lack thereof.
Yeah, that definitely came up. And it touches on this whole expectation around political spouses, right? Duwaji wasn't seen much during the primary campaign trail, and some opponents jumped on that, claiming he was, quote, hiding his wife.
Which is interesting because usually in the U.S., candidates want their spouses front and center, showing off family values.
Exactly. But Mamdani pushed back. Hard. He put up an Instagram post in May, clarified they'd only been married 3 months at that point, and he called out what he termed right-wing trolls for trying to make the campaign about her.
What did he say exactly?
His post said, Rama isn't just my wife. She's an incredible artist who deserves to be known on her own terms. You can critique my views, but not my family. Pretty direct.
And how did she react?
Her reaction was quite funny, actually. She commented on his post, just jokingly writing, she's a real.
Okay.
Which kind of gives you a little insight into their dynamic, maybe.
Yeah, it does. It also highlights how personal politics can get.
Absolutely. Mamdani himself commented on that viciousness. He said something like, if you take a look at Twitter today, you know how vicious politics can be, but it's different when it's about those you love. And after he won the primary, Duwaji posted on her own Instagram a series of black and white photos, them embracing, captioned, couldn't possibly be prouder. She also shares other stuff, more personal illustrations, like one about turning 26 and having aunties show up with their sons. It kind of grounds her, shows her life beyond just the headlines.
Right. So let's bring it to the present and look forward. Mamdani won the primary, beat Andrew Cuomo, which was seen as a stunning victory. What's the next step for him? And what does it likely mean for her?
Well, the next big step is the general election in November. He'll be facing other candidates, including the current mayor, Eric Adams, who's running as an independent this time.
Okay.
But realistically, given New York City's voting patterns, Democrats have won the last 3 mayoral races, it's considered highly likely Mamdani will win in November. Which means it's very likely Rama Duwaji will become the city's next first lady.
So connecting all these threads, what are the implications? If she does become first lady, what does that look like given everything we've discussed? Her art, her strong views.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Sure.
The expectation, according to the sources, is that she'll likely remain by Mamdani's side as he moves into this next phase. But think about it. Her background, her Syrian roots, her life as a dedicated artist, her very vocal activism, that could totally reshape what that role means in a city like New York, which is, incredibly diverse and modern itself.
Yeah, the traditional first lady role is often about supporting causes, being a gracious host, maybe staying out of the political fray.
Exactly. Often defined by convention, right? Sometimes quite apolitical in public, focused on specific initiatives. But Duwaji, she's already established herself as an artist whose work is political commentary. It's social commentary.
Yeah.
So that tension, that dynamic, it really challenges our assumptions about what a political spouse, especially a first lady, looks like and does in the 21st century.
Wow. What an incredible path we've traced today, from literally a dating app match on Hinge, right to the steps of City Hall, potentially. All through the lens of Rama Duwaji's very distinct identity as an artist. Her story really shows how fast life can change, how quickly you can be thrust into that public spotlight.
Absolutely. So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you as you watch public life unfold? It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how public figures are changing, the pressures on them, especially when their personal lives, their professional identities involve such strong artistic and, yes, political expression. What does it actually mean for a huge, complex city when its potential innovate share? First Lady isn't just a supporter, but a vocal artist, someone deeply engaged with tough global issues. That's definitely something to mull over.